Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a new episode of your program Newsroom Live. In tonight's edition, we are covering various relations between Egypt and the African continent on the occasion of Africa Day. This is Lamia Abdel-Sattar. Stay tuned. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi delivered a speech during his participation via video conference in a celebration organized by Cairo University on the occasion marking Africa Day. During his speech, President Sisi said that our African continent stands on the threshold of a new phase of construction and development. We have the details.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on Saturday called for enhanced African solidarity and cooperation amid mounting regional and international crises impacting maritime navigation and food and energy security across the continent. El-Sisi made the remarks in a speech marking Egypt's celebration of the 63rd African Day at Cairo University. Meanwhile, President El-Sisi highlighted the long-standing role of Cairo University in spreading knowledge and helping shape generations of Arab and African scholars and intellectuals since its establishment in 1908. During his speech, President El-Sisi said escalating tensions and successive crises across the world are having negative repercussions on navigation through vital waterways, international trade, global supply chains, and the energy and food security of African countries. He stressed the need for African nations to strengthen their collective ability to confront growing challenges and crises, safeguard people's resources, ensure freedom of navigation, and secure vital maritime routes. He added that these objectives aim to achieve stability and protect shared interests in line with international law. The President also highlighted the African Union's choice of water security as its year's theme, describing it as a key pillar of sustaining life, preserving the resources of African peoples, and achieving regional integration. He stressed the importance of respecting international law, governing transboundary rivers, and ensuring their sound management, while adopting an approach anchored in the governance of African rivers. This approach, President El-Sisi said, must serve mutual interests, yield shared benefits, and fulfill the sustainable development goals in addition to fostering an environment of peace. The head of state added that Egypt remains committed to preserving the unity and territorial integrity of African states and protecting their national institutions, describing this as a cornerstone for confronting the continent's interconnected challenges and reinforcing peace and security. He added that Egypt will continue supporting development and construction efforts across Africa through shared expertise, implementing projects, and being open to cooperation with international partners on the basis of mutual respect and shared interests.
To shed more light on this issue, we are delighted to be joined over the phone by Her Excellency Ambassador Sou'ad Shalaby, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, for Your Excellency, for joining us on this show.
Thank you.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi delivered a speech at Cairo University on Africa Day. In your opinion, what's the significance of the symbolism of choosing such a venue, this historical institution, Cairo University, when delivering a speech about Pan-African solidarity?
Of course, this event is a very important event for both for Africa and for Egypt. So it has been decided that this event will be a cooperation between the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation and the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research. That means that the event will take place in the most significant and popular hall, which is the biggest hall in the Cairo University, and this event also features high-level participation from African and foreign ambassadors who are accredited in Egypt. So it is important for Egypt to highlight this significant event. Also, not only this year, but every year there is a celebration, not only in the Cairo University, but also in all the embassies abroad. Egyptian embassies abroad celebrate this event every year together with all the African ambassadors in order to shed light on the mutual respect and shared interests between the peoples and the states of the African continent.
Yes, Your Excellency. So President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi framed such event or Africa Day, this occasion, as both historical remembrance and at the same time future-oriented political declaration. Why is this speech significant in this year particularly?
I'm very impressed by the speech because it combined a strategy of Egyptian-African relations and the partnership between Egypt and African countries, and especially that the strategic partnership between Egypt and the African Union and the African nations has been highlighted in the President's speech, especially that he has His Excellency has highlighted the role of Egypt in peace and security and also in development efforts, whether it is reconstruction or post-conflict development efforts. So it was a model of it was a clear model for cooperation and development between all over the years in the relations between Egypt and African Union.
So let's have a look at the most important messages delivered by President Sisi during his speech. He warned that global crises are hitting Africa hard on food, energy, infrastructure, maritime security. So to what extent is the continent being reactive to these shocks, or can we consider this a final wake-up call for self-reliance?
Of course, you are right, because the African continent is part of the global world. So any global crisis that happens, it affects the African countries and the African Union, of course. That is why it is important to have a strategy that reflects all the energy and the possible scenarios that the African countries can implement during these global crises. And of course, one of them is climate change. Second is the food crisis. Third is the conflicts in different parts of Africa that are affecting the whole of Africa, whether it is in the bloodshed or in refugees, demobilization of people who are moving from one place to another, having a lot of resources dispersed, and no use of the youth in Africa contain maybe 70% under the age of 30, and they need to be employed. So when these conflicts happen and the resources are not utilized properly, then the youth are not getting anywhere in their future. That is why I'm saying that the global crisis that is happening in the world are affecting Africa, whether it is the security, in the peace and security, or in climate change and food security.
So can we consider this speech a genuine shift towards mutual benefit across the African continent, or is it just a rebranding of Cairo's traditional position towards Africa?
No, of course it is a genuine call for
mutual benefit and exchanging cooperation.
And for giving, presenting pioneering models of cooperation and development that Egypt is presenting to the world, particularly the Julius Nyerere Dam project in Tanzania as a model of South-South cooperation, and also the leading role of Egypt in for instance, in hosting Al Alamein Africa Forum in June, and Africa Union Mid-Year Coordination Summit. It will also take place in Egypt. So there are a lot of preparations also for the 6th edition of Aswan Forum for Sustainable Peace and Development. And this, all these events will reflect Egyptian position as a pivotal role in supporting the joint African action to use the human resources and the natural resources
Yes, Your Excellency, as you mentioned, the Julius Nyerere project in Tanzania. Yes. So what are the most significant major projects in Africa, energy projects that have similar or equal scale and impact?
Well, as you know, that water sustainability, sustainable water availability and safe sanitation is a goal for AU. It's a theme for AU, and it is one of the goals for the Agenda 2063. That is why there has been many water security projects that took place in Africa, especially the dams that are taking place to regulate and to face the climate resilience. And it is not only for that, but there is an environmental challenge that is happening. That is why there has been other projects in Ethiopia for dam, like for instance hydroelectric power and power energy grids, and of course to rely on industrialization and agriculture and energy, you have to have sustainability of water security, and that is why the African continent is focusing on both the climate resilience and adaptation, and also promoting water resource management and strategies to protect shared rivers and lakes, and to also to respect the international law in respecting the rivers and the water resources coming from different transboundary water systems that are shared by different countries. So it is important that there is regional cooperation that ensures the equitable sharing of transboundary water systems, and this is what President Sisi has highlighted in his speech.
Yes, Your Excellency, the President obviously highlighted this issue and stressed that African Union's choice of water security is significant as this year's theme, and described it as a key pillar for sustaining life, preserving the resources of African peoples, and achieving regional integration. So Egypt offered to share expertise and carry out development projects across the African continent. To what extent do you see that this is a successful model in recent years, and where has it fallen short, this model?
On the contrary, Egyptian role in helping African countries have emerged long years ago, and I'm sure that the strategy that is taking place now in Agenda 2063 is based on how to transform the future of the human capital and the human resources that is rich in Africa, to use it in the digital market, and to have digitalization of the information, and to open new venues and new employment opportunities for the youth. And that is why the Egyptian initiative, like for instance the Egyptian Fund for Technical Cooperation in Africa, and also the Egyptian Agency for Partnership for Development, they concentrate on technical assistance, and they provide training programs for African cadres in the fields of agriculture, energy, water management, and also they provide the Azhar University and Cairo University are providing scholarships for African students. And of course this model has been implemented by other countries, but Egypt has been for long years offering these facilities for the African youth, whether it is in police, in military, in education, in all facets. Egypt has been providing these courses of training courses.
Yes, of course, the future of Africa, of the African continent, will not only be built based on politics alone, but with also focusing on knowledge, institutions, and other fields of cooperation. So the international cooperation between Egypt and other countries, including the African continent too, in your opinion, how can Egypt maintain the balance between its relationships with Africa and Western donors, Gulf investors, African neighbors, without contradictions?
Of course, in the forums that combine European Union, for instance, and Africa, or Russia and Africa, or the United States and Africa, Egypt plays a role in trying to attract investments to Africa in the whether it is in the field of climate change, or in the field of digitalization, or in trade, and it opens the gates between the different countries in Africa who can export their resources, not raw materials, but industrialized goods. And this is why Egypt recently chaired the Ministerial Council of Trade Ministers, for instance, and it brokered consensus between countries of Europe and Africa on the rules of origin for critical sectors like clothing, textiles, and automobiles. So it is also representing the Middle East and North Africa in the AU. For instance, in using Egypt as a gateway to the continent with the African Export-Import Bank, for instance, Afrexim Bank, because Afrexim Bank is offering a lot of trade facilities for African countries and Egypt and other countries also in Europe and in the West. So there are economic opportunities that Egypt has been providing for private businessmen, and also, of course, using the duty-free, the African free trade area, being a member of this African free trade, and also encouraging the export growth between African countries and Europe, and also reducing the costs of internal trade between countries, and also finding ways and means of seaports and airports that can export goods between countries of Africa, between themselves. That means that there is a lot of logistics that has to take place between African countries and Egypt, because it is a gateway for Europe, and also countries in the West are using the facilities that Egypt is offering in investment, and of course in guarantees for investments that are offered, whether it is through COMESA, through the African Continental Free Trade Area, or the GAFTA. So there are many possibilities for increasing the relations, the economic relations and trade relations between Egypt and African countries.
Yes, thank you so much, Your Excellency, Ambassador Sou'ad Shalaby, former Assistant Foreign Minister, for your information and insight. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll have a short break and we'll be right back.